Axios broke a news on an in the works, if you will, kind of peace plan for Russia and Ukraine. And this whole plan is inspired by the deal that President Trump successfully got Israel and Hamas to agree to as it relates to the war in Gaza. And according to Axios, this plan currently at least has 28 points that fall into four general buckets. The Trump administration has reportedly been working on this plan in consultation with Russia. So what else is being reported? What are some of the expectations? Joining me now to discuss this is Peter Doran. He's an Adjunct Fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and the former president of the Center for European Policy Analysis. Peter, welcome back to Washington Watch. It's always good to have you.
We're always talking about Russian and Ukrainian peace whenever we get a chance to chat. Glad to be here.
Yes, we are. All right. So before we get into some of the details of this plan, bring us up to speed, Peter, if you will, on where things appeared to stand before Axios published this report.
Whiplash. That is the best way we can describe events over the last 30, I'd say 90 days. Here we have been on again, off again with a potential peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine. But here's the catch with this latest proposal. It doesn't have the hallmarks of a just and enduring peace. Rather, it looks a lot more like a humiliating surrender on the part of the Ukrainians. And we can understand why the Ukrainians might be opposed to this. Let's set aside the fact that Russia is demanding that they defang and demobilize their military to a large extent. Let's set aside the fact that Russia is demanding territory it doesn't even control, or the fact that none of the leaks so far have made any mention of the stolen children, more than 20,000 perhaps, that Russia has taken from Ukraine. No, the really humiliating part of this agreement are the faithful of Ukraine. Russia is demanding that Ukraine make the Russian Orthodox Church the state religion, over and above the heads of all of Ukraine's Orthodox faithful who don't want to have that hierarchy over their heads. This has all the hallmarks of a humiliation, and not so much of an enduring peace, Jody.
Wow. Incredible information there. So we have right now a 28-point plan. I don't know. It may end up 27 or 29. Who knows? The president's 20-point plan in Gaza started out, I think, at 21 points. But anyways, we're talking four general buckets. Can you kind of unfold for us what those buckets are and what this thing potentially could look like?
Right. So it's important to say up front, we are seeing diplomacy via leaks. We haven't seen any official documents. And a lot of this is based on, as you mentioned, reporting from Axios, but also some other major and reputable media outlets out there. So a lot of people are leaking what the plan is saying without actually showing it. Also, we have to state very clearly, the Russians have said officially that there have been no major breakthroughs in negotiations, that such a plan doesn't exist. And for their part, the Ukrainians are saying, we're still waiting to hear from the Americans. So we are dealing in a bit of a fog right now. But what we know for sure, based on the information available, is that the Russians want territory that they don't fully control. This would be mainly the provinces in the east and south of Ukraine. They want a future where Ukraine is 2.5 times, their military is 2.5 times smaller. They are offering some hope for so-called security guarantees, but let's recall Russia has broken every single promise it has made over the last 30 years to Ukraine, so it's hard to expect that they won't do that again. And it's offering some enticements to the Trump administration, renewing Russian-U.S. relations, and perhaps there's some economic trade deals nestled in there. So we've got a lot of talking from the Russians, no response yet from the Ukrainians, and all of this is being done through leaks.
Wow, very interesting. And according to multiple U.S. officials, Secretary of the Army Dan Driscoll actually arrived in Kyiv today as part of a delegation of senior Pentagon officials. And at least reportedly, one of the items on their to-do list is to start exploring ways to restart these peace talks. Do you know any more about that?
We do know that there is a delegation. I would also add one of the purposes of this visit is to take stock of what Ukraine's military needs are. So it does show that the administration is very open to the idea that Ukraine will need the ability to defend itself. It also shows that the administration is trying to listen to the Ukrainians in a serious way, specifically on the question of weapons and their future defense. So I take some hope in this. What will almost certainly happen is that our military delegation from the Army will return back to Washington, and this will become part of a brief for President Trump. Ultimately, President Trump has been hot and cold on this process. When he's paying attention, he gets angry. He gets upset at Putin. And then he delegates the negotiations to others. He looks to other issues. He returns to the table, the stove, as you will. He sees the pots are boiling over. He takes action, and then he moves on to other topics. This is a recurring pattern we've seen again and again. So I expect that pattern to continue for the foreseeable future.
Very, very interesting to see how this all potentially could unfold. I know that the chessboard seems big, and there are a lot of moving parts. As you said, they come and go from one day to the other. It seems from all three of the parties involved in all of this is quite amazing. Thank you so much, Peter Doran, Adjunct Senior Fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Always a fascinating conversation. Thank you for joining us on Washington Watch.
Thank you for having me.